Hey everybody, welcome to the Mindset Podcast. We are so glad that you are here. As you know, we have rolled into season 4 and we are so excited. Season 4 is so different from all the other seasons because we're heavily focused on mindset. But the reason for this episode is because I have a very special guest and she will be showcased in my book. She's sharing her expertise on mindset, on her career journey. Before we get into it, I really have to share her career journey. It is so impressive. So I don't want to get it wrong. So I'm going to look at it. She's dedicated 23 years in the Las Vegas Metro PD. Now, she started as a civilian employee and worked her way in 2006 into commissioned police office. Did I get that correct? Correct me anytime. And along her journey, these are some of the career paths that she took or some of the things that she covered. Crisis negotiator. She did sexual assault detective, missing person detective, problem solving, even patrol.
Of course.
Patrol. And then she went to TACT, which she told me it's the sergeant. She was a tax sergeant in the academy, and what she did was train, recruit. Was that the hardest one?
No, that was the most fun, though.
It was the most fun. And from that, she moved into lieutenant, just keep growing and just keep moving. In a career that's so hard for a woman, you'll have to hear what she has to say on mindset. And then finally today, she is Captain Michelle Tavares. And what she does is she's responsible for Safe Neighborhood Bureau. She oversees gang units and narcotics, vice, violent gun crime unit, and crime gun intelligence center. She's so impressive. Michelle, welcome to the Mindset Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Sally.
Yes. Do you know you're the first person on the Mindset Podcast since we pivoted?
That's amazing. I'm excited.
And what better person to have to kick this off? I'm so glad you're here.
Well, I appreciate you having me on here, Sally.
Yes, and I am honored that you are going to add value to my book.
I'm very excited about that myself. I'm happy to share anything that I've learned.
Yes, and we will learn a lot from you because I know your story and I know just your journey, and I am so thrilled that you are here. So with that, what we'll do is we'll just launch into the questions.
Okay.
Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Now, I've read a litany of accomplishments. So you spend years under pressure in high-stake roles, years under pressure. Like, what mindset do you rely on mostly when the stakes are high? And because you're a woman in this industry, when the spotlight is on you?
When in regards to that question, there's kind of a couple different realms when it comes to police work. You think about a police officer out in the streets and having to revert back to your training, make decisions very quickly, sometimes life or death, versus what I would do now, which is more of a leadership position. I'm not really out in the streets, but some of the decisions that I make can greatly affect those that work with me. In the beginning, a lot of it comes down to crisis rehearsal and training. Crisis rehearsal, not everybody really understands it, but we're kind of taught to do that in the academy, and you really want to think through all of the possibilities of what could happen. For example, if you're headed to a burglary call and they say that the suspect is gone, you should be thinking, well, what happens if I arrive and he's still inside the house? How am I going to handle that? They'll say that the body will not go where the mind has never been. So the more you think about things, the odds that you are going to react in an appropriate manner and quickly without having to really think about your decision, those increase the more you crisis rehearse. Training is another really big aspect of that. We do a good job on LVMPD of training our officers, and we put a big emphasis on training because we know that the more you train, when you are in high-stress situations, you just revert back to training. When you think about the officers out on the streets, that's kind of your mindset that you have to have versus the leadership role that I'm in now, which is a bit different. I don't necessarily crisis rehearse like I used to. I still think about what could happen when I go into some meetings. It's not always fun to have to sit in front of somebody and let them know that you're going to administratively transfer them out of the unit, or you have to open up a formal investigation against them because of some sort of allegation or wrongdoing. Those things aren't exciting when it comes to my job, but they are a pivotal part of it. So when it comes to crisis rehearsal with that, you should think through, how you're going to handle it, what you're going to do, what if they start crying, because that does happen. You know, these are people's lives and their careers, and it can be very emotional for them to have to sit and hear that they might have to go through an investigation. It's a difficult thing. So what's my response going to be if they start crying? How do I make sure that I take care of them as a person? That's where crisis rehearsal would come into play. Mindset in and of itself now as a leader, I constantly think to myself, what would I want in my captain? If I were in their shoes, what would I want in my captain? And how do I make sure that that's what I do for them? But I also have to balance the needs of the agency, which are really important at my level. You know, the mission of the agency is drastically important for me to make sure that we are meeting. So you can't always just do what they might want as a captain, because you have to balance that with what are the needs of the department as a whole, because we are one big team. It's not just about my bureau or my units specifically. It's about my team. So having that mindset of crisis rehearsal and then making sure that you're taking care of both the agency and the people, I think that's really what's helped me become successful in my role.
Well, I'm going to go off script a little bit based on what you said. I just had another question popped into my mind. You have a very resilient mindset, and for those of you who don't know, she's also my mentor. So she's very strong, resilient, and that's one of the reasons why I asked her. But, and I don't know, sometimes that comes with common sense, something comes with high emotional intelligence, which you have. But is this taught in agency mindset and how to grow a strong mindset and building emotional intelligence?
On a small level, yes. When we go through the academy, we talk about mindset a lot. Okay. Because you really, what you tell yourself is what you are. And facing life or death situations, we have a lot of conversations about how your brain is going to work if you get shot. What are you going to tell yourself? You know, you'll talk to officers that have been injured in the line of duty and what their thinking might be at the time that it happens. We had an officer that was shot several times, and this was a long time ago, but he was shot several times entering into a home, and his mindset was, I will not die. That has to be our mindset. You have to have a very strong, resilient mindset to be a police officer and make sure that you survive the career, because it really can be life or death. So when I was in the academy as a sergeant, I would always pass that on to the new recruits. No matter what happens, you don't die. That's what I would always tell them. You might get shot, but you won't die. You might get hurt, but you won't die. You're never going to die. Your mindset must be, I will survive and I will go home tonight. I think having a strong mindset like that will help you get through some of the dangers that patrol really can put out in front of you.
I think what you did was, I was on another podcast yesterday and we were talking about this, is you played that scenario down to the end. You might get shot, but you play it down to the end, but you will not die. You have to go in with that mindset.
When I talk to cops about crisis rehearsal and we talk about what could happen, I always tell them, first, you play it out all the way to the end. Yeah. But second, you make it a positive outcome. Because I also believe in manifestation. And we don't want to manifest something that we don't want to get into. But it is important to train our brains. Crisis rehearsal is something as simple as, what would I do right now if somebody came into this studio? What is my response going to be? Yeah. But you play it all the way out to the point of, okay, did he have a weapon? Did he not have a weapon? You know, did you go hands-on? Did you have to use your firearm? And then all the way through to you taking them into custody. But it's always a win. It's always a win. You never crisis rehearse a failure.
Mm. I like that. I like it a lot. And, you know, our heads are not in the sand that they may die, but going with the intention that you're not going to die today. Today's not my day.
Correct.
Yeah.
We've definitely lost officers in the line of duty. And as an agency, you know, it's a sacrifice that they make for us in our community that we can never repay. Yeah. The only thing we can do is honor their memory. But the mindset that we have to have when we go out on the streets, even though we know it could potentially happen to us, is that we won't allow ourselves to die.
Yeah. I really like that. Man, you are strong. I forgot to mention this, but when I was doing my deep research on you, your parents were in the agency too.
Yes, I do come from a line of LVMPD. Yeah. My father retired about a decade ago now as a captain, which is the same rank I am now. My mother retired as an abuse neglect specialist, I think about 5 years ago, maybe. Yeah. And she just couldn't stay away, so she hired back on as a victim advocate. But my mom has always had a really, like kind of a soft spot for helping others. Yeah. I think part of the reason I became a police officer was, you know, both of my parents, not that they encouraged me, because I don't think either of them really wanted me in this profession. It's a tough profession.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, but once they knew I was committed to it, they were both pivotal. I mean, my father's one of my greatest mentors. And my mom, I think from an early age, has always instituted in me, stand up for those that can't stand up for themselves. And I think that's a big part of why I became a police officer.
Yeah, and you do that really well. Stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. So thanks for all you do.
Thank you. You know, it's funny because we learn a lot about ourselves from our children. And I have 4 kids, and my son my son is such a stickler for fairness. If something isn't fair, like that's the one thing that will set my son off. And I really think he might have got that from me. I didn't realize that I had felt that way, but watching him as kind of you know, it's like putting a mirror in front of yourself sometimes. And I think that's a big reason why law enforcement became the career for me.
Yeah. So this next question is a nice segue because it talks about, you know, most people think leadership is strength and control, but oftentimes we touched on this a little bit. It's about emotional intelligence and adaptability, right? How have you used that emotional intelligence to evolve over the years?
For me, I have a growth mindset. I didn't always, Sally, but, you know, I put a lot of emphasis into that probably over the last 7-ish years. How do I grow myself? How do I better myself? And I've been in a formal leadership role now since 2014. So it's been a long time. And I'm a drastically different leader than I was when I first started, which I think is to be expected. Yeah. I didn't know much about leadership when I first promoted to sergeant. You know, I met the minimum qualifications and I took the test and I had the ability to go out and lead, but much like others, I made mistakes. I put a really big emphasis on learning from my mistakes or my failures so that I could always better myself. That's part of where that growth mindset comes into play. I teach leadership classes now, but I still read leadership books. Yeah. I will still take leadership classes myself. I think there's always more to learn and always different ways to adapt. So when I think about the leader that I used to be versus the leader that I am now, one, I'm very grateful for the opportunities that LVMPD has provided me to even learn about leadership, whether it be on the job or in actual formal leadership classes, because they do a good job of trying to develop the leaders so that we can have the best leaders on our agency. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity. But two, I'm grateful for the chances that I've had to better the lives of others. Mm-hmm. That's really what leadership is about, you know, kind of moving obstacles to make the job of my folks that much easier. And it's not that I didn't try to do that when I first promoted. I just didn't really understand how. Mm. And after having the experiences that I've had as a leader, I mean, the experiences are going to help you grow. There is a difference between book knowledge and then actual life experience. Mm-hmm. When I first promoted, I had kind of a problem child on one of my squads. And as difficult as that was at the time, I'm always very grateful to her because I learned a lot. It was like a crash course in being a sergeant over that year. And, you know, she meant well. I don't think she was out there purposely trying to create problems, but there were definitely some problems. And having to learn how to navigate those things as a very young, new sergeant taught me a lot. And I remember when I was then a lieutenant, we had another problem child, and I was able to really coach and guide my sergeant through how to deal with that because of the experiences that I had. So without those experiences, I don't think I would be the leader I was today. Everybody starts somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of really working towards growing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as you were talking, this question popped into my head. It takes a lot of empathy and vulnerability to build a strong team. But sometimes, you know, those characteristics comes across as weakness.
I think that's a matter of perspective.
Yeah, talk to me about that.
I don't think that empathy and vulnerability come across as weakness unless the person perceives it that way. Mm-hmm. we as law enforcement officers struggle asking for help. We don't need help. We're strong. We can do it all by ourselves. But when you really break down what asking for help is, it doesn't make you weak to ask you for help. I think it takes courage and a really strong person to be able to admit that they can't do everything by themselves. I didn't get to where I am now alone. I had a lot of help getting here. I had to put in the work. Right. I will never take away from the effort that I had to put in. But I also had mentors that coached and guided me. I had to learn about the testing process and the nuances to that. And I learned that from people who had just gone through it. You know, I would cold call people. When I tested for lieutenant, I looked at the list before me to see who got number 1 and 2, and I cold called them. Said, hey, can I come sit down with you and talk about the process? And so I didn't do it alone. Had I not had the courage to ask for help, I don't think that I would be here now. I think that it's easier to perceive vulnerability and empathy as weakness because then you don't have to expose yourself to it. You can then tell yourself, well, I'm not a weak person, so I'm not going to do that. But I really think it's a matter of perception. Now, granted, I can launch into a whole, well, their perception is their reality thing, but that comes with the emotional intelligence of understanding that I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody is going to like me or want to work with me. And there are always going to be people out there that will say mean things for no other reason than to say mean things. And the way I view that is, if you're not adding value to my life, if you and I don't have a personal relationship and you don't know me on a personal level, then I really kind of dismiss your opinion of me. Now, if you know me on a personal level and you're providing me feedback, I'm willing to hear that. I'm very willing to hear that. But I think that's where the emotional intelligence comes into play, which I would love to tell you I was born with, but I was not. I truly believe that is learned as I have grown and I have aged and I have gained experience and I have, talked to many different people who do have an emotional maturity to them and an emotional level of intelligence to them. I have kind of learned the nuances of how to get there myself. And it's still a work in progress. I am not perfect by any means. I have my moments. But I can tell you, as a brand new leader, I would have struggled with that in the beginning. Maybe somebody not liking me or, but it's not a popularity contest. I'm not running for prom queen.
Yeah, it is so true. I have never intentionally went out there and seek out mentors. I mean, here and there I would call people when I needed them. And this time at the end of last year, I said, I'm going to do this. And then I met you, and anybody who knows the story of us, I keep pursuing you. And finally, you were the first person I asked, would you do this? And that was really hard for me. It's almost exposing I'm vulnerable.
It is
really
vulnerable.
Know everything. Would you be my mentor? It was hard. But once we sat down a few times, you walked me through some really hard things in January.
I'm always happy to
really
help.
hard things. And I was so grateful for that. So getting into the mindset of, hey, we can't do it all ourselves. That's what you're saying. It's okay to ask for help.
Absolutely.
It's okay to ask for help.
It is vulnerable to ask somebody to be your mentor. It's vulnerable to ask somebody to mentor them as well. Sometimes I just grab people because I know they're going to be great and I want to provide them mentorship because it makes the agency better. It makes community better. But it's vulnerable to open yourself up to that because of the fear of somebody saying no.
Right.
But, I think the phrase is you'll miss 100% of the shots you never take.
That's right.
If you never ask and they were willing to, now you've just lost that opportunity. So I don't see anything wrong with vulnerability. I'm a big fan of vulnerability in leadership.
Yeah, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. You saw my face when you said yes. I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's just amazing. I always try to make sure I put the expectation forth too when it comes to mentorship. I've been very blessed with good mentors, and all they've ever asked is for me to pay it forward. Yeah. So I try very hard never to turn anybody away, but I'm also honest about the level of time. And I think when you're mentoring people, it's important to talk about that, how much time you can give somebody. And I'm always honest with my mentees about the fact that I'm not going to chase you down. This is your career and your life, and I'm happy to help you anytime you ask, but I'm not going to hunt you down.
That's right.
If you don't need something, great. We might go 6 months without speaking, and that's okay. Sometimes that happens in mentorship, and I'll still be here in 6 months when you need me. I don't take any offense to that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to sit here and try to work to schedule meetings with you, and I will definitely find time for you, but this is your career and your life, so how invested in it are you?
Sorry saying I'm needy because
no, not at all.
I am. This is going so great. So great. Okay. So in your line of work, there's exposure to trauma, unpredictability. I can't say the word unpredictability. Can you say it?
Unpredictability. Accurate.
And I did my voice lessons today. And risk, right? How do you mentally reset and stay grounded, especially when you're carrying the weight of your team? You're seeing horrible things happening out there, and then your team carrying the weight of your team. How do you do that?
I think that's really personal. It's very person specific. And so I can tell you what works for me, but it might not work for everybody else.
Right.
You know, trauma is an interesting thing. There are many different levels to it. There's the experience trauma that you live through. There's secondary trauma that you may get from reading some of the bad stuff that happens. There's vicarious trauma that you'll get from, you know, a loved one kind of expressing some of their traumas to you. There's all sorts of different levels of trauma, and I'm by no means an expert in any of it. But what I have found that works for me most when it comes to this stuff, my workouts are my therapy. I am an avid gym goer. I believe in it. My running shoes and sometimes getting out there and being able to just get out of my own head really helps me reset. And I also do yoga and I meditate. Yoga is pivotal for me because I will not slow myself down. I'm kind of operate on this like go, go, go all the time, but yoga forces me to do it. Whether I do a 80-minute class or a 60-minute class, when I go into that room, it's an hour of time that I am dedicated to just calming my mind, calming my brain. And I'm not a great meditator. I always tell people, because people, I don't know how to meditate. I can't meditate. I'm not a great meditator. I'm definitely not out there being able to completely clear my mind. It will dump into a thousand different things on my to-do list. But yoga really helps me with that because I can focus on my breath. I can focus on the movement. And my mind is one of those where I need direction. I need something to focus on. So that's the type of meditation that really works for me, kind of mantra meditations versus just trying to clear my brain out. And I have no issue when I meditate repeating mantras to myself or trying to manifest things. That's my biggest reset when it comes to dealing with this trauma. My other biggest piece of advice is don't avoid it. You can run from your feelings, but you can't hide from them. They will find you. And pretending like they don't exist, ignoring your pain is one really good way to invite more pain. It will bubble up. It will show back up at some point, probably when you don't want it to, when you least expect it, and in a form that you're not ready for. Oftentimes as anger, it does like to come out as anger, and that can be directed at many different people, but usually your loved ones, and they kind of become your emotional punching bag. A lot of people will try to deal with pain by compartmentalizing and just pretending like it doesn't exist, and I am here to tell you that that does not work. It will show back up. Therapy is another great option for people, and it's not for everybody. Therapy doesn't work for everybody, but I always tell people there's no weakness in therapy. Going and having somebody to talk to or to get coping mechanisms from, that's only going to make you better and only going to make you stronger. I wouldn't be where I'm at right now had I not gone through therapy, especially during my divorce. It was pivotal in keeping me, with a solid, positive mindset, which I really try to have on a regular basis.
Yeah. I like that a lot. And you touch on the mental part of it, the emotional part of it, but even the physical part of it, like me falling off a bar stool and spraining my knee. What do I want to do? I want to ignore it and work out, which I did 3 days in a row right after, and now I'm suffering because of it. So ignoring the pain, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally, it doesn't help. And I really like what you said about the meditation, because that's something you can control when you're going through trauma, when you're going through anything hard. Go with what you can control. You can control your workout. I'm struggling right now because that I could control. Now I can't. But what can you control? What can you take a hold of? What can you do on a daily basis to stay in the routine of what you've been doing? Do what you can. I really like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So was there a moment, like, we've gone through all of your career, but was there a moment when it was tested most, and what helped you through? What did you learn about yourself in that pivotal moment?
I've had several different types of adversity that I needed to overcome in both my personal and my professional life. Each time I think I grow a little bit more. I learn a little bit more about me. I think the one professionally that resonates the most was when I was promoting to lieutenant. And I know I've talked about this on a couple of different platforms before, but this is something that women will experience in male-dominated industries. When I tested for lieutenant, I was pregnant at the time, and the agency knew I was pregnant. I had to get what's called a reasonable accommodation to complete the test, not in uniform, and there was no issue with that. They signed off on it immediately. But I did better than I thought I would in the testing process.
Of course you did.
I ended up coming out near the top, which elicited kind of the promotion right away. And at that time, I was, 8.5 months pregnant. I was very close to having my daughter, my last kiddo. And I thought, this is going to be a problem. So, the sheriff at the time called me and he told me I was going to get promoted. And I was really excited, but I was also nervous about what was going to happen. How was this going to work with the agency? And for the first week, it was no issue. The captain that I was going to get promoted and work under, we talked back and forth. We worked to get coverage I needed. And then all of a sudden, I got a phone call from our HR section. And they're like, hey, Michelle, don't kill the messenger, but they're not going to promote you on Saturday. And, of course, like my gut, just my whole stomach was in knots and my heart dropped. And I thought, well, now what do I do? And I reached out to mentors. I sought advice, and I really couldn't figure out the best way to go with it. It's a hard decision to make. And at the time, the guy in HR, he was like, hey, Michelle, you could fight this. We're unionized and things like that. He was like, you could fight this, but this is coming directly from the sheriff. And I just remember thinking, there's no way the sheriff called to promote me. He knew I was pregnant.
Yeah.
There's no way after a week he's suddenly going to change his mind. And the sheriff at the time, Joe Lombardo, who's our governor now, he and I weren't friends by any means, but I did have a very pleasant phone call with him when he called to promote me. And I was like, this man is so smart. Like, there's just no way he would do this. I sought the advice of my mentors, and they had different experiences on the agency than I did, but both of them were like, don't fight it. They said, don't fight it, Michelle. You'll get blacklisted. You'll never go outside of patrol. You'll never go anywhere on the department again. Don't fight it. And that just didn't sit well with me. Now, I didn't want to sue the department. I wasn't looking for a paycheck. That's not what I wanted. I just wanted what I'd earned.
Yeah.
So I went through my union rep, who thankfully had the relationship with the sheriff to be able to call him. And of course, he had no idea what was going on. He told her, he said, I don't know anything about this. He's like, let me look into it. And ultimately, the next day, the sheriff came and in person told me that I was going to get promoted, that he didn't know anything about the issues that I was going through. And, you think about being 8.5 months pregnant and what that does to you. You're already an emotional mess for any of my ladies that have been pregnant, especially with a girl.
Yes,
just the amount of estrogen running through my body at the time.
Yeah.
So to hear it directly from him, I was very grateful. And I had people ask me, well, do you believe he didn't know? And yeah, the answer is yes. I absolutely believe he didn't know. He could have sent anybody to deliver that message to me, but he made it a point to do it himself and look me in the eyes. And I was very grateful, and I did get to promote, but that didn't change the adversity I had to go through. I still, on the agency, I still had people that believed I was trying to circumvent maybe 3 months of probation, because I got to take FMLA after I had my baby. And I told the captain that I worked for at the time, I was like, you can extend my probation. Like, I don't mind. And he laughed, and he was like, Michelle, I'm not doing that. He said, you've done everything I've asked. I have no reason to extend your probation. He said, keep doing your job. You're doing a good job. But, it's tough when you have, I told you, the emotional intelligence I have now, I didn't always have. What that really taught about me, what that really taught me about myself was that I have to let go of what other people are going to say. I really have to find a way to let that go, because I had a ton of people on the department talking about me, and many of them talking about me negatively. You think about what happens to some of these celebrities and, the memes that went around, and, they can be very hurtful.
Yeah.
But if you can find a way to remind yourself of who you are and remind yourself that these people don't know you and they don't know what you're going through. I always like to tell myself, too, we go back to mindset. I remind myself over and over again that the way people treat you is more about them than it ever will be about you. Ever. So when people react in the negative manner that they do, or or they try to do or create hurtful things, even if they're just trying to be funny, that's more about who they are as a person than who I am. And at the end of the day, I continued to do my job. I continued to work hard in the manner that I always have, and it paid off dividends. I had a captain who took a chance on me and made me his admin lieutenant, a male captain, by the way.
Yes.
Took a chance on me and made me his admin lieutenant. And from there is how I promoted to captain. I was able to take the captain's test and promote to captain. So I'll always be grateful for him for that. And I had mentors that went out on a limb for me to try to remind other people that there was no malicious intent behind when I got pregnant and when I tested. It was all just coincidental. And though the timing wasn't great for any of us, it's just how it worked out.
Wow. So, oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack there when it comes to mindset. But one thing I want to say, kudos to you, 8.5 months pregnant. That is so badass. Right?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's one. But two, I think, and you and I had talked about this before, is that sometimes when things are going on and we believe that someone's not responding the way we want them to, we automatically assume the worst of it, right? And go into your mentors and talk into them. What I love that you did, if you're listening to this when it comes to mindset, you listen to your gut. Your gut told you, I need to run with this. And you did it in such a good way. You just went to your union rep and said, would you talk to him? Talk to Joe Lombardo at that time. Go talk to him and find out. And then what I love that you did, you got to choose. People were saying, did you really believe he did not know? And this is mindset in play right here, because you got to choose whether you believe or not that he knew, and you chose to see the good in him, take him to face value, and believe that he did not know. And what a beautiful relationship that created over the years.
I'm very grateful to what the sheriff did that day. Again, he didn't have to look me in the eye and tell me that.
Yeah.
But he chose to. And I will always be grateful for that. And one of the things that it really did was I think it opened up the eyes to some people at a higher level on the agency. And we don't have some of the issues now that we had back then. But I also reminded myself, even with what my mentors told me, my mentors went through the agency at a different time themselves, so they had different experiences. I never fault somebody that doesn't want to fight. I get it. It wasn't easy. I didn't even really put up a big fight. Right. I just kind of asked for what I'd earned, and I still had to deal with the fallout from it.
Yeah.
So it's not for everybody. I understand that. I always tell people you have to do what's right for you. I really try to be a non-judgmental person because you don't know what somebody else is going through.
Right.
People are suffering all around us and we have no idea because they choose not to share it. So who am I to look at them and judge them and say, well, I fought, you should fight.
Right.
I disagree with that. And I think my mentors did have my best interests at heart when they told me not to fight it. It just wasn't right for me at the time. And I tell people, go with your gut, and you have to do what's right for you and be prepared for whatever may come.
Yeah. That is so powerful and such great insight, So let's talk about glass ceilings, because you have shattered some of these glass ceilings, not one, but more than one in leadership. What limiting beliefs did you stumble upon across, like as you were going through your journey? What are some limiting beliefs that held you back at sometimes to step into your full power?
Well, first, when it comes to shattering those glass ceilings, my thank you has to go out to people like Kevin McMahill, who's our current sheriff. I was the first female captain of major violators of narcotics, but he put me there. He's the one that had the faith in me. He saw what I was capable of. I think one of the reasons that we didn't historically have women in that position is it's more of a tactical position. You don't get a lot of women in narcotics to begin with, and major violators is very tactical, especially in the sense like they're similar to SWAT in that nature, and you don't get a lot of women in those places either. So you don't have a lot of women with that experience. But I was blessed to be a crisis negotiator and work around SWAT, and I did have some experience around the tactics. I was an investigator for quite some time, and for Sheriff McMahill to take a chance on me and put me in that role is part of the reason I was even able to do that. So thanks goes out to people like him who were willing to see that in me and then give me the chance. Right? Because it's still a chance. Do I sink or swim? He put me there, so now I've got to swim, and I'm grateful for that. But when it comes to some of my own limiting beliefs, there are always times in my life when people outside of me have seen what I'm capable of rather than me seeing it myself. I think that loving ourselves is a lifelong journey. We really have to put an emphasis on how do we grant ourselves grace and have some self-compassion, especially when we fail. It's hard. I'm a big Brené Brown fan.
Yes.
You were already talking a little bit about vulnerability,
Yes.
and she's huge on vulnerability. And, she talks a lot about perfectionism and how really that just comes from a place of shame. And we are so afraid of the judgment of others that we then strive for this unattainable perfectionism. And when you can learn self-love, self-compassion, it's really one way to combat that. And I've done a lot of I do a lot of self-awareness. Like, how do I be more aware of what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing and where these things come from? And I think that's what's helped me to continue to elevate, rather than, it's that little voice in our head, right? We all have that little voice in our head. And you have to find a way to tell her to be quiet. Because, and Sally, you taught me this, right? Don't go negative. You control.
That's right.
You control that voice in your head. Don't go negative. So anytime that little voice goes negative, I remind myself, hey, I have the power, and I have people in my life. I surround myself with people in my life who lift me up rather than hold me back. And I think that's also pivotal, because when you're struggling and maybe you're having limiting beliefs and you can't see what others can see, if you've surrounded yourself with the people that believe in you, they're the ones at that moment when you need them the most that are going to remind you of who you are and what you're capable of. I think that's the biggest thing, especially for women. We're very quick to limit ourselves. When you have the right group, the right circle, they're quick to remind you that, no, you're more than capable.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
And I love that you mentioned that. Surround yourself with the right people, because one of the things as women also we have a hard time doing is letting go of people who don't serve us.
I agree with you, Sally. I think it is pivotal. Some people, especially generationally, will believe that once somebody is in your life, they have to stay there. And I don't agree with that at all. Now, I'm not out here cutting people out left and right.
Right,
like
right.
That's not what I'm doing. But I am a big fan of, we should be contributing to each other.
Yeah.
This isn't a one-way street.
That's right.
I try very hard to be, like I said, non-judgmental and positive. It's so much easier to go negative. It comes naturally, I think.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to look at the positive side of things, and I try very hard to be a glass half full person. So when I have glass half empty people in my life that don't work towards positivity, typically they're not contributing to my life. Now, I might be contributing to theirs, but again, two-way street. So I may distance myself from them. I don't really cut a lot of people out. Like, I'm not like, you're done. No more. It's not like a hard line for me. But I also don't cultivate friendships that I don't think are going to be two-way streets. Yeah. Because as much effort as I'm putting into the friendship with you, I think that you should put that into me. And same thing with relationships. I'm a huge fan. I'm a people person, Sally. I love people. I love meeting new people and hearing their stories. I'm definitely an extrovert. I love that, so I'm very approachable. And I think that you learn people as you navigate those relationships, and you kind of learn whether or not they're going to end up being close friends or they're going to end up remaining more professional friends, which I'm okay with as well. Not everybody has to be in your tight circle.
Right.
Some people can just be in your outer circle and be professional acquaintances, and you can go to lunch with them when you're at work. But when you're on your off time, those aren't the people you're necessarily going to call for drinks. Yeah.
I'm pretty big on understanding where people fit into your life. And I tell my clients, sometimes I use the fridge people, the living room people, and the porch people. But understanding that sets the right expectation for people also. You're not disappointed when they don't do what you expect them to do. If you put them in the right category per se, there's nothing wrong with that, because not everybody's going to fulfill all of your needs, and it's okay to have different people that fulfill different needs. And I was just on with a client who said, I was so confused about that for years because I expect all of my friends to fulfill all of my needs.
I think expectations lead to disappointment.
Oh, absolutely.
We put unfair expectations on other people just because I'm an extrovert and I'm a people person and I might drop everything to help you. Doesn't mean that you will do the same for me. Right. And that's an unfair expectation to ask you to operate the way I do.
Right.
I think when you become friends with somebody, this is why I say I don't just cut people out of my life.
Right.
When you become friends with somebody, you take them for their faults as well as all of their good. You don't get to pick and choose like, oh, well, I like this about you, but I don't like this. You can decide whether or not you're going to be close friends with them. That is a choice that you have. But you don't get to turn them into something that you want them to be for your friendship. So my close friends, I accept them for every part of them, including their faults. Nobody is a perfect person. I am far from perfect, constantly learning and growing. So how dare I expect somebody else to be perfect? But again, expectations lead to disappointment. I don't expect people to act the way I act or do what I do, but I do learn them and get to know them. And then that can give me, okay, what is my expectation of how they've operated in the past? If they switch off of that, that can be kind of surprising, especially if they've been pretty consistent. But for us to put expectations on other people, I think is unfair.
Yeah. I like that. I think it ties into leadership also to understand where people fit into your organization. Also, unrealistic expectation is the one thing that demotivates employee. If you put unrealistic expectation on them, understanding what their skill sets are, put them in the right role, set them up for success, so that they don't fail. Because when we're telling them, we're telling an accountant to go do graphic work, or that's extreme. They don't do that, but something to that effect. We set them up to fail right away. I was working with a client. She called me up. She's like, "Well, this guy's not doing what I asked him to do." I do use a DISC personality, and his personality is a D. He's a high D. And I said, you're asking a D to do the work as a C, which is C is more compliance. And I said, you set him up to fail right away. You got to take him out of that role. She was quite shocked. So understanding where people fit is very important. Thank you for going into details on that.
Very valid point.
Yes. So one of the themes in my book is about confidence. And I believe confidence is built more through reps and recognition. It's like a muscle, right? When we work at our muscle every day, what are some daily habits or mental practice that has built your confidence over the years?
Well, I think competence is confidence. I really think knowing your craft, and not just a basic understanding of what it is that you're doing, but truly knowing your craft, that is absolutely going to lead to confidence. I'm also big on projecting what others may want to know. I always say, look around the room and pay attention to the questions that are asked of the people around you, because likely one day they're going to ask you. That goes right back to the competence. I'm also a huge fan of discipline. I told you that, the gym is my therapy. Well, I'm not motivated every day to go to the gym. I go at 5 a.m, so my alarm goes off at 4:15, and it is not easy to get up, but I am disciplined. I think being disciplined with my workouts allows me to be disciplined with other areas of my life, and it grants me an aspect of control that whether I actually have it or not doesn't really matter, because I am so disciplined with my workouts and my workout regimen. I now feel like I have this level of control over my life that other people might not feel they have. Having that breeds confidence. There are a lot of other little nuances to confidence as well. Looking people in the eye, getting comfortable with eye contact, getting comfortable with silence. A lot of people are not comfortable with silence. Being a crisis negotiator taught me how to be comfortable with that. Sometimes you need to let something hang, let people think about it. Others aren't. They feel the need to fill that silence with something. It makes them uncomfortable. Being okay with silence, being okay with eye contact, those are things that will breed confidence. The more you tell yourself you're confident, the more confident you will actually become as well.
Yeah.
When you act, and again, this is learned. I will tell you, I told you Metro's really good at leadership and helping grow us. And I took a leadership class when I was a young sergeant. And at the end of it, the instructor said to me, and it was a lengthy course, he said a lot of things that I loved, but one of the things that he said to me was, he said, Michelle, he said, you are very intelligent. And he was like, but you lack confidence. You need to go get confidence. And I was like, well, how do I do that? Like, what, And so I put a lot of work into become. And he told me, he's like, you don't believe in yourself. And he was right. I didn't. I didn't believe in myself. That little voice in my head was saying a lot of negative things rather than a lot of positive things. But I fall back on what I've accomplished so far. There are always going to be things I don't know how to do. And there are going to be challenges and new things to learn. That's that growth mindset, things to overcome. But when I am in the midst of that adversity or those challenges, I always fall back on, look at how far you've come, Michelle. I never thought I would be here. I never thought I'd be a captain for, one of the largest agencies in the country. I'm so blessed to have these experiences and be where I'm at, but I never thought I would be here. So when I am maybe lacking the confidence, or I'm in a room with all of executive staff thinking I feel out of place, I remind myself of how I got here and that I do have a lot of knowledge and I know a lot of things that all of those people don't know, just like they know a lot of things that I don't know. It's more about that than it is anything else.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like the steps I have taken towards my confidence level. And by the way, I then ran into him I took like the advanced portion of that leadership class. And he told me almost immediately in the first class, Michelle, when you walked in, he said, I immediately noticed your confidence level and how far you've come. Oh. So that made my day, to have that acknowledgement from him in that position.
Yeah. I that resonates with me so much because I changed my branding colors, and I might have told you this story. I changed my branding colors to lighter colors. And I was at lunch with a friend, and I told him this, and he said, yes, because when you first came out with your business, you came out with bold, bright colors, came out of the gate storming because you didn't have the confidence, and you had to build your confidence, and that helped you. So understanding what will help you build your confidence, which is some of the things, the bold, bright colors helped me psychologically, but becoming a subject matter expert and constantly learning, the competence, I love that. Constantly after a year, I felt confident that I'm like, I don't need this bold, bright branding color anymore. And I can say, I'm Coach Sally, because I feel like I have become a subject matter expert. I'm still learning. Like we said, we're always learning in my field, and I feel very confident in that field, and that so resonates with me. What else did I write? With you, you're a mixed bag, and it's so fascinating because you exude of confidence, but yet there is a sense of humility. There's a balance there, and sometimes it's really hard, right, to have that balance.
I'm not a fan of ego. Yeah. I don't like ego. I think ego will destroy the most competent person.
Yeah.
That being said, I think you should have a little bit of ego. I think ego helps drive you to more, right? But I will always say, the mighty will fall. Yeah. When you get up at a level and you think now you've got it all figured out, at some point you will fall. Ego gets in the way of a lot of things. I practice humility. Yeah. I'm not perfect at it. There have definitely been times when I might have thought, well, I can do that better. And then I remind myself, hey, you're in a different position, or they have a different experience than you. They were picked for a reason. I'm very big on, again, empathy, putting myself in other people's shoes. I think the humility comes from my distaste for ego. I don't like arrogance. Mm-hmm. We cops are type A personalities. We just are. I mean, you need a little bit of that to be a good cop. Yeah. So it's pretty normal. But in the academy, when I was a tax sergeant in the academy, we're the type A's of the A's. That's who ends up going to the academy, because now we're training the type A personalities. Right. I think that's really kind of where I learned humility and how to take a step back and kind of get rid of any ego. Again, learned. I wasn't always like this. There are people that may have interacted with me when I was a very young officer, and I did have ego. I did think I might have been better than somebody else. And as I've grown, I'm better than nobody. Yeah. I'm just a different person. We do different things. I may have different achievements or accomplishments, but that certainly doesn't make me better than you. Yeah. And so I practice humility.
Yeah, I love that. I'm at a stage in my life where the past couple of years I find myself wanting to be in bigger rooms and with people that are much, much smarter than me, because I look forward to learning from them and growing from them. You always say, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I don't want to be in that room.
You got to find a new room. There's an insecurity level that some people have, though, where they don't want to be. They're worried about being the, quote, dumbest person in the room. Simon Sinek. Yeah. I love Simon Sinek, and he says he's okay with being the idiot. Yeah. He'll ask questions, and that's how he learns. And I'm a big fan of that as well. So I love that you're seeking out rooms where people are more intelligent than you, because that is how we learn.
Oh, totally. This past year, you've taught me to be humble, because one of the things, I was hot-headed over a situation, and you're like, Sally, Give all the credit. Don't take any of it.
Well, you don't need the credit.
You said you don't need the credit. You just don't need it. And it was the best thing I could have ever done because it just felt so good. It just felt so good. So I love that.
The one of that credit is ego. Again, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of ego. There's nothing wrong with it. When you have a great idea and then somebody steals your idea, it's okay to be like, what the heck, right? Like, it's okay to feel some kind of way about that. That's not a bad thing. But at the end of the day, one of the many things I learned from that leadership class I was telling you about, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? And at the end of the day, if I'm effective, that's better for my people, it's better for the agency, and better for the community.
And I feel like God and the universe aligns things when you humble yourself and you step back. It aligns for you.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
Again, I'm a big fan of the universe and what it will put out in front of us.
What it will put out in front of you when you do the right thing. So, let's have some fun. If your mindset had a slogan, like something with slap on a bumper sticker, what would it be and why?
Bumper sticker slogan. New level, new devil.
Oh, that's my favorite one. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but I love it then.
Oh, I love
new
it.
level, new devil.
New devil.
As you progress up personally and professionally, there are always going to be people that want to see you fail, that want to tear you down. Moving up in the agency, you become a target-rich environment. There are people who have no motivation to work hard, and the only way for them to make themselves feel better is to try to tear down the people around them. There are also people that want what you have. They want the next step. I don't work towards the next step. I never have. I always try to work for the job I have now, and whatever may happen will happen. At the end of the day, I've achieved what only about 23 people at a time can achieve on my department, and that's becoming a police captain. And I'm very excited about that.
Yes,
I worked really hard to get here. If the universe doesn't see fit to give me the next step, that's okay with me. It doesn't change how I work. It's never going to change my hard work or my drive because I'm not working for that. I'm working for the people I work with to make their lives better, the community's life better. But there are people that are striving for that. So there are many people that will stab you in the back as you move up a level because they want what you have or they want what you could get. Personally, the more I've worked to grow myself, the harder that I've worked to level up, to do new things, to strive to be better, the more people in my life I've had to let go of. Because again, they're content with where they're at. And so I move up a level and there are all these new little devils that I have to experience as I have leveled up personally, and so they're always going to be there. New level, new devil. It's understanding that. And I am a huge fan of not changing how I operate because of somebody else around me. Yes. You're not going to get to change. You don't have the power to change who I am at my core.
That's right.
You just don't have that kind of power over me. Right. I believe in operating with love and kindness and treating people with grace, granting grace to myself. No matter what you come at me with, I'm not changing that. Those are steeped in my value system, and you can be any kind of devil that you want, but you're not dragging me down to your level.
I love that. That's my favorite slogan. With every level comes a different devil. It's been my favorite slogan, and I tell it like to all my clients that I coach. And then I walk them through what that looks like. And you're absolutely right. When it comes to mindset, you have to realize that as you are climbing that hill, the people down here are going to lose oxygen. Michelle Obama said this just right. Some people down here are going to lose oxygen and they're not going to make it up the hill with you. And they might even try to pull you back to say, hey, don't go up there. You're going to get tired.
Yeah.
But you have to keep going up there. Michelle, we're getting to the end, but is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you?
Sally, I like to leave people with something to think about. I heard someone say once, everybody has 2 lives to live. And the second one starts when you realize you only have one. I remember when my second life started. And I wish I had realized that a lot sooner because I was holding myself back from things that I wanted to try for fear or, thinking I didn't have the means or the time. We only have one go at this. We only have one chance to do what it is that we want to do. I'm a huge fan of saying dream big and go out there and live that life, because you're not going to get another chance to do it. And the last thing that you want to do, we also don't know when our time is up. We really don't know. So why wait? Go out there and do it and live your life to the fullest. I don't keep people in my life that don't benefit me. I'm always out there just trying to be positive and breed positivity, because I believe it comes back to you. And with this second life that I have now realized that I have, I am doing all of the things that I always wanted to do before, but was too scared to try, or had my own limiting beliefs, wouldn't try, or somebody around me would say, don't go after it because you might fail. I don't care anymore. Let me fail. At the end of the day, at least I tried.
That's right. Amen to that. Amen to that. So, friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And with that, it's a wrap.